When it comes to horse racing, you can never have too much information. With twinspires, you can place your bets with confidence, whether you use handicapping insights like our Brisnet speed ratings, prime power and past performances, the guidance of our experts' top picks, or just choose a name that catches your eye. Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with twinspires. And now you can race to victory with twinspires tournaments. When it comes to horse racing, you can never have too much information. With twinspires, you can place your bets with confidence, whether you use handicapping insights like our Brisnet speed ratings, prime power and past performances, the guidance of our experts' top picks, or just choose a name that catches your eye. Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with twinspires. And now you can race to victory with twinspires tournaments.
Welcome back to the twinspires Racing Roundtable. I'm Ashley Anderson here with James, Scully, and Vance Hanson to look back on a big weekend at Belmont at the Big A, other stakes action that caught our eye, and then we'll talk about Preakness 150, which is this Saturday at Pimlico, the second leg of the Triple Crown. But before we start, I wanted to send a big congratulations to Vance Hanson, who was unanimously elected to the National Turf Riders and Broadcasters Board, and among responsibilities will be representing the Eclipse Awards. So congrats, Vance. Any acceptance speech?
Thank you very much. No acceptance speech. Off the campaign trail now. So looking forward to serving on for the next 2 years.
It was very well deserved.
And I'll add Vance is a voter for the Hall of Fame. He's been a distinguished turf rider for decades now, Vance, I guess.
Now you're aging me. I appreciate the comments. Thank you.
Yes, very well deserved. And let's move over to start things off with Belmont at the Big A. We had a number of stakes, but we also had local Belmont prep, the Grade 3 Peter Pan, won by Hill Road, trained by Chad Brown. James, I'll start with you today. Let's talk about Hill Road, who's now pointed toward the Belmont Stakes. What do you give his chances in the third leg of the Triple Crown?
Well, I think he's going to be a little bit up against it, considering you've got Baeza and Sovereignty, among others, pointing for the Belmont. But I will say Hill Road is definitely going to be entering the Belmont Stakes on the upswing. This is a horse who just made a second appearance of the year, in first appearance second appearance of the year, and second appearance for Chad Brown in the Peter Pan. And he really came with a real strong late run, to prove best by about a length. One thing I'll say about Hill Road, he was 60-1 when he shipped over for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last fall off of a pair of turf stakes starts, and closed for third that day. And he's earned triple-digit Brisnet late pace numbers for both that third in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, the third in the Tampa Bay Derby, and the win in the Peter Pan. That's a sign of a good horse. Those triple-digit every single start late pace numbers. Now, he was, after his comeback in the Tampa Bay Derby, Chad Brown talked about how he had some issues over the winter. He was only at like 80%, and he expected him to improve significantly upon that effort. And Hill Road missed the Wood Memorial because of a fever. So that sort of put him behind the 8 ball. But this was a strong comeback. He didn't beat the strongest group, but he did what they were looking for. And he's got a chance to keep progressing, I think, with a strong effort from off the pace. I look at him more as a top 3 contender than a serious win contender, but I like this effort, Vance.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of your sentiments. I mean, this horse, based on his running style, you knew stretching out to 1 1/8 was going to hit him between the eyes. He needed nearly all of it to win the Peter Pan. He should thrive even more stretching out to 1 1/4 for the Belmont. I would really like his chances more in 1.5 miles Belmont, a traditional Belmont, than 1 1/4 miles, because there's just a lot of quality closers aiming for the third leg of the Triple Crown. Of course, we've got Sovereignty, we have Baeza, perhaps even Final Gambit, and you really have to wonder, where's the speed going to be coming from for the Belmont? Of course, we have Rodriguez pointing for it now. He could be ultra tough in there if not a whole lot of other speed is signed on. So Hill Road, I think, is going to get better and better as the season progresses. Unfortunately for him, there's not a whole lot of 1.25 mile races to point him for. I do think some of the other 3-year-old closers probably have an edge on him right at this moment as far as talent is concerned, but he's one to watch out for, as the summer kicks along, and perhaps could even be a stronger Travers candidate than a Belmont candidate, Ashley.
I agree with that. I think 1.5 miles would probably suit him better. And James, to your point too, the triple-digit late pace ratings, you gotta love that. He was a horse that I was looking at before the Wood Memorial as maybe a long shot for the Derby, but we didn't get to see what was going to happen there. I did think he was pretty green though when he was in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and then even in the Tampa Bay Derby didn't have the best outing. So I think he has one for the minor awards. I have to respect Sovereignty going to the Belmont and like his chances better, but also to the point of pace, it could be Rodriguez gate to wire. Is Cornucopian still potentially in the mix there too? So I'm thinking one or the other will be in the Belmont for Baffert, and then do they just get an easy lead in that race? And it's at 1.25 miles this year, so that changes things to where I think Hill Road definitely is one to probably finish second or third, but not quite to the caliber. If I want a late closer, I'm going Sovereignty, Final Gambit, or Baeza coming off the pace as well. Let's see. So now we talked about the Peter Pan. There are other stakes at Belmont at the Big A, and we also had some other stakes action across the country, and maybe even some non-stakes action that caught your all's eye. So Vance, who stood out to you?
Well, Royal Ascot is about a month away, and prep races are going on across the Atlantic and also here in America at Gulfstream over the weekend. We had a pair of juvenile turf sprints at Gulfstream, the Royal Palm Juvenile and the Royal Palm Juvenile Fillies. And for the second time in 3 years, trainer George Weaver sent out a first-time starter in the Royal Palm Juvenile, and he won it. This time it was with another long shot named Sandal Song, who had to overcome post one. Broke a little slow too, but he did recover and beat a pretty heavy favorite to win, going away by about 1.5 lengths. And with that win, Sandal Song gets an automatic entry into a Royal Ascot race of his choice. It could be a 5 furlong event like the Norfolk or the Windsor Castle. He could stretch out to 6 furlongs in the Coventry, but I think he would probably be best suited sticking to 5 furlongs at the moment. And George Weaver, like I said, he won the Royal Palm Juvenile a couple of years ago with a first-time starter. That was No Name Metz. Now, that horse didn't run particularly well at Royal Ascot, but Weaver also saddled that year Crimson Advocate to win the Royal Palm Juvenile Fillies, and then she went overseas to Ascot and won the Queen Mary Stakes, going 5 furlongs of Group 2 in an upset. So don't count out George Weaver now. We've had Wesley Ward going over there for a number of years now with dangerous 2-year-olds. George Weaver has kind of picked up that mantle as well. And I wouldn't put it past Sandal Song representing America quite well next month in England.
I will get your picks for those races when the time comes. Our board member here is way better at the European racing than I am. James, what caught your eye?
Well, I'm going to mention a couple of I think up-and-coming turf types that ran at Churchill Downs last week. I'm going to start on Saturday. They had a non-winners at 2 other than allowance race, and Corruption, a 4-year-old gelded son of Medaglia d'Oro, proved best. He actually led wire to wire. I just want to say Corruption, trained by Mark Casse. Mark Casse got away with running this horse in a maiden $35,000 claimer back in January. This gelding, Corruption, he ran twice last year in maiden special weight races. He ran 7th, beaten 31.5 lengths, and 11th, beaten 9 lengths. So really showed nothing early on. Casse dropped him into a maiden $35,000 claimer at Gulfstream in mid-January. He won that race. Then he won a starter 50. Then he won an entry-level allowance. And the race that he was coming into this race Saturday off of was a neck second to multiple Grade 1 winner Farbridge in the Grade 3 Pan American. So this Corruption, maybe you could chalk that Pan American effort up short field and was loose on the lead, and it's a fluky performance. But he came back and backed that up Saturday. That was a pretty good allowance race at Churchill on Saturday. Corruption proved much the best. This is a horse, too, that has won multiple times from off the pace. His last 2 efforts have been on the lead. He's getting really good for Mark Casse. And like I said, somebody could have claimed him for $35,000. He's already made more than $200,000 in less than 4 months' time since then. And then the other one I'll mention real quick, Here for a Good Time. Now, this is affiliated with a completely different profile, always well regarded by Godolphin and Brendan Casse. His dam is like a sister to the this filly, Here for a Good Time, is really closely related to New Year's Day, the champion, the Grade 1 winner and sire, and Mo Heyman, who was a multiple Grade 2 winner, ran 4th in the 2016 Derby. We'll see Here for a Good Time come rallying right here, win this race for Brendan Walsh, going away, Flying Dutchman's breeding and racing campaign her. She's a filly that when Walsh tried her on turf in mid-March, 3 starts previously, she was a little ranked that day, ran 3rd, broke her maiden and off the turf maiden. And then that was just her 2nd turf start. And it's a Justify filly. She looked really good doing so, got a good number. Watch out for Here for a Good Time in the 3-year-old filly turf ranks. That's already a really deep division with Nitrogen, Vixen, and others out there. But Brendan Walsh has a promising 3-year-old turf filly in Here for a Good Time.
I'll talk about a turf filly who is becoming one to watch in the turf sprint division, I suppose you could say. She's So Spicy, kind of one of my favorite names in horse racing right now, and she has now built a 3-win streak since switching to turf. She actually had a very dominant win by more than 16 lengths when she debuted on the dirt at Gulfstream, but in her last 3 starts has switched over to turf, and you'll see her in this race at Churchill Downs, the Mamzelle, Grade 3. She won by more than 4 lengths, and she was the favorite in this race, the favorite in the Limestone. I tried to play against her 2 starts back at Keeneland, but she proved to be the best that day as well. Kilwin was in the Limestone at Keeneland as well and came up the rail in this race and finished a good 2nd, but still more than 4 lengths behind. And Micaiah, the 3rd place finisher, rallied late, maybe at a longer distance, had a chance to beat She's So Spicy. But right now at 5.5 furlongs on the turf, She's So Spicy is clearly the best filly right now on the turf in those sprint distances. So I'll see what she does next, but I feel like now I can't play against her as much as I tried to in the past. She's shown me
rapidly improving.
Yeah, she had a 97 Brisnet speed figure, career best, and it's only up from here, I think.
In that race at Keeneland, Dream Away, she was like it was a hard fought win over Dream Away, and we saw that gray filly weaken into 4th. That was Dream Away. She absolutely got crushed by She's So Spicy. I thought that her finish on Saturday in that Mamzelle was brilliant. It's that she had like an extra gear left after being up there tracking the pace at 2nd, really moving forward nicely. And yeah, she's based on that effort, best 3-year-old turf filly sprinter in America right now.
Yeah, and she's by Matoli. We also have Booth racing this coming weekend on the Preakness undercard by Matoli as well, probably the top 4-year-old sprinter out there. It looks like could be. We'll see what happens down the line. But let's switch over to Pimlico and talk about Preakness and the undercard as well. So Vance, what are your early thoughts on the Preakness?
Well, it kind of looks like journalism is obviously the horse to beat, and he's going to get a lot of pace in this race from goal oriented, and River Thames is going to show a little bit of pace there too. And I think this race is going to set up very well for journalism if the 2-week turnaround doesn't affect him too much. It could certainly play a major role. And we noticed in the last final 16th of the Kentucky Derby a couple weeks ago that he was getting tired late after chasing Sovereignty in vain. Almost lost second there at the last jump to Baeza. So journalism's going to have to be on his game again with the quick turnaround. But on paper, he does look like the very best horse, and he should win well, all things considered.
James, what do you think? Journalism for the win here? Any thoughts on the undercard?
Yeah, I think journalism is going to run a big race. I thought that I thought ideally, I mean, I'm not saying it cost him anything, but I think ideally it would have been sitting a little bit closer to the pace because he doesn't have like per se the quick turn of foot that Sovereignty had on the far turn in the Derby, and then Sovereignty just wore him down in the stretch. But without those rivals in there, I think he's. I mean, Michael McCarthy wouldn't be running him if he didn't exit the Derby in good shape, and I'm expecting a top effort that proves best. Vance mentioned the pace in there. It's interesting. Baffert gets the rail with goal oriented. He got big. He led wire to wire in his allowance race last time. We know how those Baffert horses break from the gate. I expect him to show speed, but there is other speed. American Promise is right to his outside in post 3. I think he's going to be hustling. I just don't know. One thing about this Preakness, though, is that last year I fully expected Imagination, who had led wire to wire. He led all the way into San Felipe. He was on the lead in San Anita Derby. I expected him to be hustling in the Preakness with others. And when Cisa Gray beat him to the lead, I just felt like the other speed just took a hold and sat up close. So if that happens, that could work theoretically against a little bit of the late runners. Journalism, I'm more of like a stalking type of trip. But my other take is I didn't understand making Gosker 20-1 and American Promise 15-1. I mean, just looking at the Preakness betting board, I think it's more of a casual betting board than even the Derby. And it's rare to have one horse at 15-1 or higher. And those horses are not horses that have been winning Kentucky Derby prep races like the Virginia Derby and the Lexington Stakes. These were bums. I mean, Chase the Chaos was 10-1 in the Preakness. So I just don't think you're going to get those high prices on horses like from Lucas and an up-and-coming type like Oscar. As far as the undercard, every single race on the undercard the last couple of years, seemingly with the exception of one or two, had like 7 horses or fewer. And I just saw that on this Saturday draw. I mean, you have like a whole slate of races that have 9 or more horses entered. So hopefully the weather cooperates and can have some good field sizes on Saturday's undercard for the Preakness.
And I think the dinner party probably is the most competitive field that you have on that card. It does
13.
seem...
Yeah. 13.
A lot of good horses in there. I mean, you can make a case for a lot of them. And then with the Preakness, I feel like you can make a case to throw out a lot of them. I was a little surprised that Clever, again, is 5-1 on the morning line for the Preakness. I agree with you on Gosker and American Promise on their prices. If I'm trying to play against journalism, which I'm not going to, I think this race does set up for him. I thought maybe River Thames, the way he closed in the Bluegrass. But honestly, I just didn't feel like he was that strong of a horse. I feel like Grande was my preferred Pletcher horse that was on that road to the Kentucky Derby. We'll see, though. I mean, coming off this, he's been working out well, so maybe River Thames can, sit off the pace and get the job done. But it does seem like journalism, speed figure-wise, it's just, the rest is the big question here. And then if goal-oriented can break well, I mean, I could see him going gate to wire. But, again, he's competing with American Promise and maybe some others going to the front. So journalism probably you have to find a long shot to play underneath in your exacta, I think. Which again, who knows what price we'll get on some of those.
I'm a little intrigued by that foreign horse, Heart of Honor.
I was thinking the same. I mean,
we'll talk a little bit more
right
about
there.
him later in the week, but he's like a horse that's like this intrigue horse because he's never been worse than second in 6 starts.
Right. I mean, he's raced the distance of the Preakness the last 2 starts and was beaten, I think, a nose and a neck in the last 2. So depending on how he, can translate that form over here in the U.S., I think he's definitely one to play and maybe won't be respected at the betting window. So a good one underneath. But we will be talking more about that later. So we won't spoil all of that talk that we'll have tomorrow, actually, with Eddie Olczyk, I should say. That was, that's what we call him around here. But Eddie Olczyk is joining us tomorrow to talk Preakness and the Black Eyed Susan. And then we'll also have our regular jury on Thursday to talk the undercard as well. But any closing thoughts on the Preakness or anything else before we sign off today?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Clever again. I mean, that horse is a pretty fast horse for Steve Asmussen, and he's been targeting this race ever since he won the stakes in late March at Oaklawn. He's got a lot of early speed. He's going to contribute to the pace, and he might be hanging around pretty tough at the finish. He could prove a formidable foe for journalism. And he enters pretty fresh for this, and Asmussen has won this race a couple of times already with lightly raced horses. So I would expect Clever again to be pretty solid contender in this.
He definitely has
American
stamina
Pharoah.
in his pedigree.
Oh yeah, exactly. American Pharoah retired in 2015. Journalism came along, and I'm sorry, Justify came along and stole all the thunder from him at stud, clearly. But all of a sudden, American Pharoah was back with a couple horses in the Derby this year. They didn't run well, but at least that he was represented. And now he's got this Clever again, and he's out of a Galileo mare. So you got American Pharoah and Galileo in the media pedigree. You're right, lots of stamina in there, and that horse has been proven to be very fast for Asmussen, leading wire to wire in his last 2 wins.
All right, well, I think that's all the time we have today for the Racing Roundtable. Again, congrats, Vance, on the much-deserved seat on the board. And check out, like I said, tomorrow on Wednesday, we will be talking to Eddie Olczyk. We'll have James and Darren joining us to look at the Preakness Stakes and at the Black Eyed Susan. And then Thursday, our twinspires jury as well. And then next Tuesday, we will be back with more Racing Roundtable. We'll see you then.
When it comes to horse racing, you can never have too much information. With twinspires, you can place your bets with confidence, whether you use handicapping insights like our Brisnet speed ratings, prime power and past performances, the guidance of our experts' top picks, or just choose a name that catches your eye. Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with twinspires. And now you can race to victory with twinspires tournaments.